evening, everyone, and welcome to In the Know with CaT Bobino. Today, my extra special guest is Kristie Wagner, and she is joining us from the Midwest, right? 2 hours later.
Yep.
So, welcome to the show. Could you let everyone know what it is that you do?
Yes. So I have been a K-12 science educator for the past 6 years, and now I am a stay-at-home mom. But I also do work for the North American Association for Environmental Educators, focusing on climate change education. So what I do is pull resources and opportunities for educators or climate professionals that they can use in their classrooms or in education settings, or just for their own personal enrichment. And just kind of find opportunities for them to learn more about climate change and how to integrate that into education. And one of the more fun things that I do is, I think it's fun, is to look at the state standards and look at how we can integrate climate change activities into already existing curriculum, because that's one of the biggest challenges at a lot of schools.
Well, that is fun, I guess. I don't know if I would call that fun. I think that's a lot of technical terms sometimes. It's almost like being a lawyer. I don't ever read the stuff I know I'm supposed to read. But anyway, how did you get started in that? I mean, I know you're a stay-at-home mom now, but how did you get started in the education aspect?
Yeah, so I went to a conference for NAA DoubleE the first time because it was in Wisconsin where I live. And I'm
Okay.
like, all right, I'm gonna go to this one, right? It's close by, it's, an hour away. I can stay at my mother-in-law's house. It's perfect. So
Right.
I had lunch with the right person. And that was it. So I had lunch with one of the board members and had a conversation with her about climate change. And after the conference, she gave me a phone call and asked if I would like to work as a content moderator for the Climate Change Education EE Pro group. So
Hmm.
basically, we had a phone call and talked about, what would you like to see happen with climate change education, and discuss, is this something you would like to do? And I'm like, yeah, definitely.
That's good. I mean, and a lot of times that's what happens. It's not even what we're looking for. It just kind of falls in our lap.
Yeah, definitely. And I went to the conference because someone in my master's program was like, "Oh, are you going to this?" I'm like, "No, what is it?"
Well, that's cool. And so, climate change and climate education is very important, of course. It should have been important for like the last 20, 50 years, but it's
Yeah.
definitely important now. So when you sat down with lunch and you got that opportunity, how did you feel about that?
I was pretty excited, but I also have a little bit of imposter syndrome with it, because it's like, here I am, this, biology and life science teacher going and digging into climate change. But if you think about it, it makes sense because ecology and systems thinking all kind of interconnect there. So,
Hmm. It does. It does. And so when you went to, we're going to go back a little bit, but when you decided to go to college, was this something that you were interested in teaching? Always wanted to be a teacher, or was that something else?
so I actually didn't decide on teaching until like 3 years in. Uh, I started out in pre-pharmacy and
Okay.
then decided that I didn't like chemistry enough for that. So I switched to kind of just some general courses and took a biology class and had a professor that was wonderful, and decided, okay, I like this. I'm going to do this. And took a lot of field work courses, which I absolutely
Mhm.
loved. And then I had, funnily enough, my ecology and evolution professor is one of those people that just has so much energy and is so excited about what he does at 8 a.m. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to feel at
Mhm.
8 a.m. So I decided to switch into an education focus and kind of took it from there with a focus on biology and environmental sciences.
Okay, so I completely understand chemistry. I took chemistry. I'm not going to say I did well in chemistry, but I definitely took chemistry. And sometimes some of those classes can be a deterrent of what you thought you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you were like, pharmacy is a little too technical. Let me teach what I
Yes.
do know is biology.
Yep.
So you started off with that K through 12. What grades were you teaching mostly?
So I started out with like volunteer work on campus, actually tutoring other college students in the biology department. And
Okay.
I kind of used that experience to solidify, like, yeah, this is actually what I want to do. And then I was doing middle school and high school science. So throughout that, I did all fields of science pretty much because at the middle school level, they're pretty basic and I can handle that
Hmm.
chemistry.
Yeah. Oh no, yes. When I first graduated from undergrad and I came back home to Oakland, I was a chemistry tutor for high school, which I didn't understand why they wanted me to do it because, like I said, chemistry was not my forte or physics. But okay, I was like, I could try. High
Yep,
school chemistry should be easier than college chemistry.
definitely.
Yeah, so you did after teaching and then going into climate change. Can you tell us a little bit more about NAA I know a lot of people probably haven't heard of them before.
Yeah, so it's basically a national organization for environmental educators. Anybody who is working in a classroom or a nature center or any capacity where they're either learning about themselves or helping other people learn about climate change or just environmental education in general. Sorry, I'm the climate change person. Um, but yeah, so there's not a lot of K-12 teachers in the organization actually, which is part of what intrigued the woman that I had lunch with so much and why she wanted to kind of bring me in because I had a skill set that wasn't necessarily the norm in the group. And I think there are more teachers now than when I started, which was probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point. But I mean, bringing that skill set in, and I'm sitting here feeling like a unicorn because, you know, there's this set of skills that I have that these other people don't, and it comes so normal to me, and it feels like you can really make a contribution. You can really help with those skills.
Oh yes, and that's the thing is, once you find your niche, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling to be in your niche. And
Yes.
so, with the climate change education, what's some of the topics or some of the things you've created for people to use?
So I don't create a lot of stuff from scratch, but I do take a lot of the curriculum that's out there. So, as a part of the certification for becoming a teacher in the state of Wisconsin, we have to take a Project Wild class. And it's a I don't know if it's nationwide or worldwide or whatever, but it's a thing out there, right? Project Wild. It's outdoor educational activities. And we did an activity there that day that I have used every year I've taught since.
Okay.
And it's called Oh Dear. So basically, you have students, or in this case, teachers, we split up into two halves, and half of us were deer, half of us were resources. So things like food, water, and shelter. And so you have people line up and face away from each other and make these symbols. And then basically, when you say, oh dear, they all turn around. The deer run and try to get food, water, or shelter. And if they find someone, they live, right? They get their food, they have their necessary resources, and they survive. So then they take that person back, that resource, and they become a deer. If they don't get it, if they don't get their needs met, they die and go back into a part of the ecosystem. So the way that I use it is we look at changes in population, so trends in carrying capacity, things that, how a drought can affect a population and how it can affect
Mhm.
other species as well. And so, like with the middle school kids, we just kind of talk about how those things change in the food chain and the food web. And at the high school level, we really get into graphing the data and analyzing the data and looking at those trend lines. And, they have a lot of fun with it because they're doing a physical activity, but they're also looking at these really big climate change issues of weather and climate and, natural disasters and how they affect the wildlife, which is a super important concept that doesn't always get across by just talking about it in the classroom.
Oh, absolutely. Like, when you're trying to talk or teach that in the classroom is different than
Mhm.
when you're more hands on and you get to fully immerse yourself into what's going on. So, how do the students do? Do they seem to take a lot out of it? Do they now become climate change experts and tell everything, tell people what they've learned?
So I mostly teach high school freshmen, and they're not quite to that aspect of it yet, but you can see the light bulb turn on. So basically, when you're explaining it in the classroom, you can say, oh, well, this population changed because of this, but it's hard to really kind of make the connection without some sort of experience. So you can look at the changing numbers and understand that it's changing. But when you're actually physically doing the activity and then we introduce a predator and make them
Mm.
hop around on one leg, but say they can tag as many people as they want, like they're having fun. They're building those neural connections while they're learning about this concept. And it really just kind of sticks more and they remember it.
Well, that's really cool. I don't think I ever had teachers like that, except for one. I had one who, when I was in high school, we did marine biology because my school was right by the water. And so we'd put on waders and we'd go out and we'd go into the water and we'd get samples and stuff. And it really showed me that I like outdoor doing work, something hands on. And then, you get older, you work in a lab and you're like,
It's
this,
boring.
this, yeah, this is not for me. I need to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
outside. So that's good. I mean, hopefully students are getting that. I know of a biologist who I think she moved to Missouri, and her daughter is doing outside school. It looks like I think she's like early elementary. But I see all
Okay.
the pictures and stuff of they have tree stumps for seats and they're actually like going to the creek and stuff like that. Is that similar to Wisconsin? Like it's more outdoorsy and you guys are more hands on?
It depends on where you are. So at the last school that I worked at, we actually had an outdoor classroom, which there was a building on the property, but it was a couple of acres of different kind of biome representations where you
Hmm.
could go on a trail and look at different types of areas. So you look at a prairie area, a swamp area, a forested area, and you can talk about things like succession. And what I loved about that area is that you can look back historically at how that area has changed. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
really local and relevant thing that you can take and then shift that lens from biology and ecology and look at it through a climate change lens.
Hmm.
But
Oh,
there
that's
are,
really cool.
yeah, there's a lot of outdoor kind of nature areas with schools in Wisconsin, but I unfortunately haven't worked at one, but there's at least some sort of outdoor learning space.
I did not even know that existed until recently. Like when I would see her daughter out and they're, collecting sticks and leaves and talking about
Mhm.
nature. I'm like, do they do that in Oakland, California? I don't think I've ever even heard of anything like
It's
this.
an East Coast trend.
Okay, well that makes a lot more sense because I was just
Yeah,
like I've never seen it. I was wondering if it was in Oregon or in Washington because I was like, it might be in California. California's so big, I have no clue what's going on
yeah.
off the California.
I know there are some things like that out your way. I'll have to connect with some of my old grad school classmates because I know one of them runs a center like that out west.
Oh wow. Okay,
So,
yeah, that would be
yeah.
cool.
And there are a
That's
ton out
awesome.
east that we looked at when I was in grad school, around the Boston area.
Awesome. So, are you originally from Wisconsin?
Yep.
Ah, so you stayed within the state. Ah, that's really cool. I don't want to stay in California. I'm over it. I'm done with California. Been here, done that. But that's really cool. I've never been to Wisconsin. Like, what's Wisconsin kind of known for outside of cheese? I know cheese.
Construction and snow. Um,
Construction.
No, there's a lot of really cool historical stuff. So I grew up in Prairie du Chien. It's on the Mississippi River, and there are a lot of historical buildings there. There's a Lewis and Clark outpost, and it's
Hmm.
just kind of, it's a historical place, and there's a lot kind of there. And we live right by the bluffs, so there's a lot of pretty colors in the fall. And yeah, it's just, oh, sorry. Oh,
No, I understand. You are a mom of two, which we could get into later. I get
yeah.
it.
Gonna turn 4 today, so.
Woo.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of natural areas, and I live in the Milwaukee area, and I live in one of the kind of northern suburbs of it, and there are so many parks and natural areas. So it's a really kind of awesome place as far as that goes. And, state parks, and we've got the Kettle Moraine State Forest, which is
Mm.
really awesome. And I actually went there in college for one of my fieldwork classes, so that's a kind of cool connection. I was supposed to help chaperone one later after I graduated, but I sprained my ankle 2 weekends before, and I decided
Oh,
it wasn't a good idea to go hiking.
yeah, probably not. But that does sound amazing. That's really cool. And so I know, as we said, you're now a stay at home mom of two small ones, but you still are doing great work, such as writing books. So, yeah, can you tell us about your books?
Yeah, so actually the publishing company reached out to me after they found my blog on NAA DoubleE and thought that I might be good for some of the book ideas that they had. So my first book was, oh, excuse me, my goodness. My first book was Human Anatomy for Kids. It's a junior scientist, part of the junior scientist series. It's an anatomy guide. So for ages 6 through 9. But honestly, from my experience in the classroom looking at reading levels, it would be good all the way through high school. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you're going to have kids where it's above their head and kids where it's way below their level and they're bored with it. But I have people who have gotten it for their kids who are still 4 and 5, and they like looking at the pictures, and there's an activity at the end of each chapter that they can do to kind of, demonstrate, I guess, the human body system that they talked about or kind of relate to it in some way, shape, or form. Like there's one where we extract strawberry DNA, which is super fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a sunscreen one and just kind of some fun things. And the second book that just came out on October 5th or 6th, I don't remember which, is a preschool activity book for the human body. So I promise I'm not always this tired.
No, I understand. I like I said, I'm in Seattle right now,
Yeah,
and when this is done, I probably go to bed, even though it's only like 6:20 my time.
yeah.
But oh yeah, I woke up. I didn't really get much sleep because my son doesn't let me sleep very long, but I understand.
I am very fortunate on the sleep front. My toddler, who is almost 2, has pretty much slept through the night every night but a handful since his little brother was born. And
Wow.
starting a couple of weeks ago, the 3-month-old now has been sleeping from about 7, anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 until 3 or 4 in the morning at least. So,
Well, I don't know how you do it. He goes to
boys
sleep
are
around
awesome.
8:30 or 9, and he'll wake up probably around 2 or 3. You know what it is? He's greedy like his mom. He just wants a bottle, and then
Uh,
he's good. He goes back to sleep, but he wakes up hungry in the
yeah,
middle of the night.
my
But
oldest
I
did
think,
for a while.
yeah, that's him. That's mine. And his little elbows and feet is what really keeps me awake because they're
Yeah.
all up in my back and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, we sleep trained at 4 months, and it was the best decision we ever made. It was hard to do while we did it, but you put the
Oh no,
kid down awake and he just goes to sleep. It's amazing.
yeah. Well, my partner says he's gonna work on it while I'm gone. Like apparently I'm the sucker, and I'm like, oh my god, my baby, So he was
My
like, we're gonna
husband had to
work
make
on
me put in
sleep.
headphones and do something else so I wouldn't pay attention to it.
Yes, yeah. So this whole 2 weeks I'm
Ah,
gonna be gone. They're gonna work on that, and
oh,
I
good.
hope he, I hope he does it. So when I come back, it's already done, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
But
no, it's wonderful.
so your second book, did you write that while pregnant, or
Yes.
were you able? Yes. How is that with a toddler, pregnant, and writing a book?
So that one was a lot less writing and a lot more designing the activities,
Mm-hmm.
which was nice. And I was also teaching from home with my son here with me. And so he actually plays really well independently. So he has a couple of play areas, and we have like a formal dining room area that's a second playroom. So he's got lots of stuff to occupy him, but he is amazing. And when I needed to do stuff, pretty much would just go and play. And
Oh.
he's got a giant bookshelf that he just pulls books off of and flips through throughout the day, which I love. I'm so happy that he loves books. But yeah, so when I wasn't doing active work stuff, I would work on it a little bit, or when he was napping, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times after bed. And I know for this last one, when I was going through the editing process, I did that while my brother-in-law was here helping out
Okay.
watching him. So
Okay. Yeah, because whew, I'm
yeah.
pregnant and tired with a toddler. You're like a super mom. And then with a newborn, that's amazing. Like I give you mad kudos for that because
Thank you.
I can barely do it with one, let alone a second one. I don't know if I would survive.
Yeah, I would not work from home with them both here for sure. But the nice thing was that, when I started the school year, my son was only what, he was less than a year old. So he was like 9 or 10 months old at that point. So he wasn't running all over the place yet. And
Mhm.
in that time we bought a house too. So we went from a 2-bedroom apartment to a 4-bedroom house. And
Mhm.
so moving and everything in the middle of that, like I could not have asked for a more cooperative child.
That is amazing because when mine was 8 or 9 months, even he was crawling, not walking, but he still was all over me. Like I'd be at work on a Zoom, like, excuse me, I will be right back. Like, please give me a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. I'm happy for you that you were able to do that. And so you've written your books, and I know you've contributed to a lot of other things. I mean, I go to your page on the NAA website, and your learning activities and contributed content is just it's extensive. You have so much going on. Oh, hey, we got a chat from hello and good evening from the Black Math Academy. Hello and good evening.
Hi.
Yeah, so again, I always forget to do this, but this is In the Know with CaT Bobino. I'm here with Kristie Wagner. And if you have any comments or questions, make sure you put them in the chat. We can see them and we can read them. So make sure you do that. But again, you've done so much. What is one or two of like your favorite things you have done or
Oh,
worked
wow.
on?
So I have to say one of my favorites, and because it was the most fun, I do summer school back where I did my student teaching, and I do K through 8. And I was able to do a Wisconsin wildlife course one summer with them. So we were outside every single day. We had field guides. We were looking at flowers and trees and leaves and everything. We did scavenger hunts, and we learned about native plants and what it means that something is invasive. And explaining that, as simply as we can for a kindergartner, right? Meaning, it
Right.
didn't come from here, it came from somewhere else. Um, but just doing that and doing those outdoor activities with the kids, and looking at I mean, they go to school there during the year, right? So learning about their place, establishing
Mm-hmm.
that connection to the outside world and to the environment around them, because that is the most important part of climate change education, is establishing that connection with the natural world around you, understanding how it's connected to itself and how you're
Mm-hmm.
connected to it. So like, to have these kids that are still young enough to be super excited about things like science, you know, it's amazing. And I love being able to do that and just getting them outside and enjoying what's there, because
Mm-hmm.
I look at my childhood and I went outside and got called in for dinner, and that was
Right.
it. I didn't sit and play video games all summer. So like, childhood has changed. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of goes into another one that I'm super excited about that I did when I was in my first year of teaching. I was teaching at a charter school in Milwaukee, and I had an environmental science course for juniors and seniors. And about halfway through the year, we had talked about doing a book study. So the kids kind of decided what book they wanted to do. I gave them some options, of course. And then we went through Donors Choose and had a class set donated of Richard Lou's The Last Child in the Woods. So these juniors and seniors were reading and writing about this book that is not a storybook. And
Right.
it was phenomenal. And they kept a journal throughout. So, like, every Friday, we read a chapter in this book and they would answer the discussion questions that I made for them. And then if they were done with the chapter, they could either go ahead or, have a study hall and catch up on other stuff. But the part that was so rewarding about that experience was that these kids who didn't even realize that there was nature in their backyard were now making connections in the community and where they were and really connecting to their place and reestablishing that lost connection, which that was probably the most rewarding thing that I've done as an educator.
Well, that's really good. Yeah. I feel like elementary, kindergarten, they're still open. They're still ready to learn. They're like, this is, I could be a astronaut and a cowboy at the same time. And, they're so fresh. But then, you get to juniors and seniors in high school, and sometimes it's like they are not as interested, or they've already been kind of beaten into a path of what they're going to do, and for an opportunity to kind of open their eyes and let them see, oh no, there's more to it than what you think, and there's
Mm-hmm.
more to your backyard, is amazing. So
Yeah,
how did the
and
students go ahead?
I was going to say, and to just get them to realize that they can do so much. It might feel like it's such a big task, but they can make a huge impact on their space.
Oh, absolutely. And just being mindful of what you're doing. One of my biggest pet peeves where I live is the people who litter, and who do it just open their car door or window and throw
Oh
out a
yeah,
whole bag
the
from
worst.
McDonald's and this drink. And I'm just like, you couldn't wait till you got to a garbage. Why are you messing up our streets? These are the streets that you obviously live around. So why are you messing it up?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is they don't get that education or that thought process of what's in their backyard, or and how to maintain it.
Yeah, and I mean, from being in the city too, like, not every kid has a backyard. Not every kid has a green space. So focusing on how to find that wherever you are, or, finding a place that you can go to that has that is a really important piece. And that's something that I've kind of tried to bring along into all of my classes, even teaching in a more affluent community, in a northern suburb of Milwaukee. Like, these kids have backyards, they've got everything, but they're still disconnected. And it's just the generation.
Hmm. It's the social media and all the apps generation. Like
Yeah.
I think this is not that I haven't traveled, of course, in like the last 2 years, but this might be the first hotel where Netflix was on the remote.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. There was a button for
Ah,
Netflix on the remote, and I was like, okay, that works, I
yeah.
guess. I mean, I am quarantined, so I can't do a lot. Netflix will be helpful, but I've never actually seen a remote with a Netflix button.
Yeah. See, I would have brought a bag of books.
And I have a book. I bought a book with me. I didn't want to bring too many because I
Yeah,
already
they're heavy.
had a. Yeah, they're heavy. You know what I'm saying? But I did bring one book for sure that I was like, I'm gonna have all the ample time to read this. But yeah, I was just like, and when I came in, my TV was already on, and there was a QR code on the TV, and it was like, be able to manage your TV from your phone.
Wow.
And I was like, but you also have a remote. Why do I need to download your app? I don't want your app. I don't. I don't want to use my phone to turn it off when I can use the remote.
Oh, yeah. Things have changed so much. And I mean, the generational thing is huge when you talk about climate change. And I had a recent high school graduate reach out to me, and ask for advice on how that they can make an impact in climate change as a group of recent graduates or youth, right? And a lot of what I kind of got from her was that they felt like they weren't going to be able to do enough. And so
Mm,
I said, it can feel like that, but think about if you 10, 20, 30 people do something and each of you gets two more people to do something. That's huge. And so
mm-hmm.
just kind of reframing it and looking at like the small changes. So I referred her to Project Drawdown, which
Mm-hmm.
is I'm blanking on the author's name right now, which is horrible. But I'm going to blame mom brain on that one. But anyway, so Project Drawdown is this amazing guide, and it's not, a step by step by any means, but it's small, doable solutions and actions that you can take as a part of your normal life that aren't huge changes that can make a big difference. So, like leaving the TV off when you're not using it.
Right. Which you would think the hotel would do. Like
Yes.
they didn't need to have it on because I turned it off, and then when I turned it back on, that QR code came back up. So I was
Mhm.
like, so I didn't need it on when I walked in. You could have just left it off.
Right, yeah,
So,
and just kind of I mean, and you mentioned social media, and I had said to her too, she asked me, "How do we get people involved?" And I'm like, "Social media, use it." Because that's where people
absolutely.
are. That is where we are right now. We are a social media world, unfortunately, and, as much as I try to stay away from it, I find myself on it every day too, but it's the kind of thing that is so useful and becomes so, like it just pulls you in because there's so many possibilities that you can do with it, and you just really have to, like, do good with it, you know? You have to look for those groups of people that can help you do good, and that's what I kind of, focused on for her, and I'm like, "Use Project Drawdown, make small changes," and, I always use the example of myself. Like, I switched to bar shampoo and conditioner about a year ago, and
Mm.
I've been using the same one for like 6 or 7 months.
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah. So it's like there's no plastic involved. It lasts forever. It's more money up front, but, and that's the thing with these like eco-friendly options, it's more expensive. So sometimes people don't do it. But what they don't realize is that it lasts so much longer
Hmm.
than the alternative, and you end up spending more on the alternative anyway. But until you experience that and realize that, like, hey, I've been using the same shampoo and conditioner bar for 6 months, like, you know, it's hard to really feel that difference.
Right. And I think I'm not going to say people are afraid, but they're not, there's, it's something they're not used to. So, excuse me, because they're not used to it, they're not as willing to try. And like even my partner, and this may be TMI, but even my partner, I use reusable pads. Just you can wash them, you know.
Mhm.
And he's like, no, and don't they smell, and and when do you have to pack them up? And I was like, no, it's really not that bad. It doesn't smell. You wash them, it's fine. You use them one
Yep.
day. It's not like I'm using the same one every like the whole time. Use one, take it off, and wash it, and put another one. And I have had people. I've tried to tell people to try it. It's good for the environment. No more plastic,
Mhm.
and they can't wrap their brains around it. They're just like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, it's what they're designed to do. So it's like obviously the people who made it have made it so it's a convenient thing, as convenient as something like that can be. And
Right.
I mean, it's like cloth diapers, right?
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
debate the debate with that, and I decided against it, was because of the water usage to wash them. And but I mean, it's a toss up. Which
Right.
resource are we going to conserve here? So
Right.
and but yeah, there's so many choices, and I think people are afraid. They're afraid of change, and they're afraid of being uncomfortable, and that is a huge thing with climate change because yes, we can make all of these changes super easily, but some of them are really inconvenient. like carpooling,
Hmm.
right? Or taking the subway
Right.
instead of driving, but all of those things can make such a huge difference. And, what Project Drawdown focuses on are those little tiny changes that don't really affect your daily life. And
Right.
that's why I love it so much. And it's as simple as, changing to a reusable water bottle versus a plastic one.
Exactly. And I had that conversation when I worked at KQED. It was another lady who worked there who bought a water bottle every day. And I was like, why don't you just buy a reusable one, fill it up? And she was like, well, because I could just buy one and use it. And I said, I need you to count how many bottles you buy in a week. Just the 5 days at work, not even the full 7. 5 days when you go to work, how many bottles do you buy? And she was like, she thought about it. And then I said, okay, think of the whole KQD. How many people work here? If everyone bought a water bottle like you every single day, and we're only one building in one city in a tiny, tiny
Mhm.
part of California, like, what do you think is happening around the globe? And so eventually she did buy a reusable bottle because she was like, dang, I didn't even think about it like that. I was like, yeah, that's a lot of plastic.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like, people don't think about it in terms of if everybody did what I'm doing, you know? And that's huge too, because if, I talk to my students, I have 150 kids in my classroom, right? And, talking about the numbers is great, but, unless they can see that and experience it, it's so hard for them to understand because we can look at numbers all day and talk about like, number of pounds of plastic in a landfill, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, seeing that landfill makes it real. And, seeing that damage makes it real. So at those field experiences and those like getting out and doing things experiences are
Mm-hmm.
so important. And, I don't think there are enough community like activities or community education as far as that goes. And I know some places do like a community cleanup, but there's not enough of
Mm-hmm.
that. And just kind of understanding that, like, yeah, people do need to actually clean up the roads and clean up that trash and the litter that you put there. Like, it doesn't just magically disappear.
Oh, right. And I did a tour. I wish they would do like tours of a landfill for students and even adults. I did a tour when I was doing my show and I was still working on my master's. And I saw, like, we have the 3 bins. You have trash, you have recycling, you have the green bin. Compost, that's right.
Hmm.
And so, but for us, where we are, the only bin that gets touched by hands is the recycling one. So they don't even look at what you're putting in the green one. They just dump it and try to compost whatever it is. And then the trash they don't touch. But even with recycling, like some people, they're using a garbage bag and they tie it up like it's trash. Because of that, they think it's too hazardous for the humans to open it and see what's in it. So they automatically put that in garbage.
Mm,
And yeah, it's like so many different rules. And so when
yeah.
I'm at somebody's house or, doing something and I'm like, no, recycle. You don't have to put it in a garbage bag. Just throw it in there. It's fine. Just do it
Yeah.
that way. And they're like, nah, recycling is too hard. Like I have a friend in Texas. She just don't recycle. And she was like, it's too
Uh,
hard. I was like, how? All you need is one can next to the other can.
yeah.
It's really not difficult.
We fill it up and go dump it in the bin in the garage, and there you go.
Right. But I think her problem was you have to pay for recycling, like
Mm.
in Texas, which I was like, I guess I can see why you wouldn't want to pay, but it's also
I think ours is just
helping
part
the
of our
environment
property
for your.
taxes.
Yeah, I think it's ours too. Like we
Yeah,
don't pay for it.
just
But
there.
it's
You
funny
just
you
do it.
mentioned, yeah, you just do it, But it's funny you mentioned Project Drawdown because I mean I'm not besties with him, but I know the executive director of
Ah,
Project Drawdown. Yes, he's on my Facebook page.
awesome.
Yeah, and so it
Clearly, I
was so
haven't done enough
interesting.
talking.
Yeah, he used to be the CEO of Cal Academy of Science out here, and then he moved to I think Wisconsin or
Oh, wow.
where's Project Drawdown? It's somewhere where you are, somewhere near you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, and so he moved that way. And so, yeah, I think he was just on Facebook how he had just bought a house either in Wisconsin or somewhere near there.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
I'm gonna look him up
That's
and
great.
see exactly where he said he moved to. But yeah, it's so funny when you brought up Drawdown because I was like, I know somebody who works at Project Drawdown. That's a small world.
Well, and you know what's also funny about that? So there is I think it's called the Growing Project in Milwaukee. I didn't learn about that until I was doing my master's degree in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to the oh goodness, now I'm gonna forget the name of it. There was DSNI is the Downey Street Neighborhood Initiative, and it was basically like focusing on getting the neighborhood together to work as a community, neighborhood gardens, neighborhood like um, just having people work together and taking care of their community and each other.
Mm.
And we went by a community farm and they had talked about growing power, and I learned that it was in Milwaukee. I'm like, wait, what? Like, why am I halfway across the country just learning about this? Like, why isn't this more popular in Milwaukee?
Right.
It is crazy. Like, there's so much here, and there's so many nature centers. And I mean, an hour away in Madison we've got the Aldo Leopold Nature Center. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just so many great educational opportunities.
It's crazy. Yes, and I was completely wrong about the state. He's in Minnesota.
Well, that's not that
Yeah,
bad.
he
We're
is.
close.
Yeah,
It's still the
but yeah,
Midwest.
right. Yeah, he's closer to you than he is with me now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's crazy how many small projects aren't shared. Now, I don't know about where you are and how things happen with you, but here or where I am from in Oakland, I feel like there's so many things that are going on, but our youth never hear about it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. I'm like, I don't get how the schools don't know or do
Yeah.
the teachers not know? And I feel like more teachers do know, and they're using so much time to like corral the classroom and be just to get the like education part out that it's
Mhm.
hard to share projects and stuff and
Yeah,
opportunity.
and there's also the financial aspect to it. Like it costs money to take kids somewhere, and to bring in people. I know that so I was a guest speaker for a summer learning series recently and talked about like, the climate change resources that I've used to bring into the classroom, and, went over a lot of stuff like Project Learning Tree and Leaf and just the curriculum that exists out there
Hmm.
that you can easily pull from into those existing curriculums, because that's one of the problems that I always encounter is like you have this set of things that you need to teach and that you need to hit on, and how do you bring climate change into that, because
Right.
it's in every single science. It's a part of every single science field. So you just have to switch the lens that you're looking at it through, and that's over the last 6 years I've been able to do a lot of that. And I'm actually, because I don't have enough to do debating creating my own climate change curriculum for different age levels while I'm a stay-at-home mom. So we'll see what comes out of that.
That is amazing. That's a lot. But yeah, I think that some of the classes can add to it and then being like, this is what we do. But then there's
Mhm.
organizations too, like I had I had met the new CEO of Cal Academy of Science out here and the CEO of Chabot Space and Science. And, both of them are just like, how do we get more people of color and how do we get the kids to come? And I'm like, invite them.
Yeah,
Like send a bus for them. That's the main thing. If you send the bus, they
get
will
them there.
come.
Yeah.
And the previous CEO said he would do it, and I don't think he never did. But I was just like, they can't, not like you said, not everyone has a way to your museum or to your project or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you as the company or the organization send the bus and invite them, then they will come.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too in Milwaukee. Transportation is hard. Not everybody can go to a nature center on the weekends. Maybe they have to watch their younger siblings while their parents are at work. Like it just
Right.
doesn't always work. The schedule of the nature center isn't necessarily the schedule of all of the people. So I
Right.
think it's really important to meet people where they're at. And that's another thing that I kind of focus on because I work with kindergartners who play outside all day. They live in a farm, great. They have a much better idea of what I'm teaching about than the senior in inner city Milwaukee who has never experienced a green space.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of figuring out where they are and starting where they are and building on that is such a useful tool. And I found that to be the most successful way of approaching, you know, any science education, but especially climate change. Because like I said before, you have to start with that connection, because if they don't care about it, if they don't see how it connects to them, it's so hard to want to do anything.
Oh, absolutely. So, what would be your suggestion, I guess you could say, for that inner city student who may never have seen a green space? Like, how do you get that connection with them?
Find a green space. I know it sounds so simple, but it's really not. No, I mean, so the thing is, reach out to people, like look for green space at your school, look for it with friends, community, someplace that they can walk to, which obviously is not always a great option, especially in Milwaukee. There might not be a safe place to walk to, but oh, excuse me, looking for those spaces where you can, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's something as simple as keeping a house plant. It's green, right? It's
Right.
there. And just kind of, I mean, that's not ideal, but it's what you've got. And that kind
Right.
of, meeting yourself where you're at in terms of that, learning how to take care of a plant. You still see how things like light and water affect that plant, right? So the best advice is just to ask for help, right? Ask for information, ask for access. And
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of, so again, transportation is sometimes an issue, but there are a lot of free days at things like, the Field Museum in Chicago or Shed
Right.
Aquarium and everything like that. So just finding out about those and, schools working with those days to get the kids there for free admission, and then all you have to pay for is the bus. And
Right.
so just kind of it's gotta be a community effort, right? They say it takes a village, and it truly does, not just
Mm-hmm.
for education in general, but for, like, helping kids to understand where they are in their world, and that leads to that climate change education and understanding.
Oh, absolutely. So how far away from you are you from the Field Museum? That's one of the places I really, really would love to go one day.
We're not that far, actually, we're about an hour outside of Chicago, so it's maybe an
Oh,
hour and a half in
wow.
traffic, yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know. I be getting jealous, but I'm not jealous of the snow. I'm not jealous of that
Yeah,
at
I hate
all.
the snow. We need to get a snowblower this year. Shoveling while I was pregnant was miserable, but I'm not doing it with 2 kids, so
Yeah, no, I don't even know how you did it pregnant. I don't know if
very
it's hard or
slowly.
not because I've never done it. I don't ever want to do it. I've been in snow. I've never lived in snow, and just being in it, I was like, every year? No, I don't think I want.
Yep.
But you guys have better green spaces, is what I'll say.
And
It's
where I'm at
way
here, we have a ton. And I mean, when we lived in Milwaukee, there were 3 or 4 different parks that I would routinely go to and walk with my son. And now just walk in the neighborhood, but like there's trees and green everywhere. So we have a
wow.
backyard
And
where we have probably 20 turkeys that go through my yard every day. We've got 3 cats living on the wood pile in the back of our yard, and I'm so excited about that. I
oh
noticed
my
them
goodness.
like last week, and I told my husband, "Can we put out food? Like, can these be our cats?" And we have 2
Oh, you're
indoor
gonna have
cats.
more. You're
Oh,
gonna
I
have
know.
more cats if you do that.
Well, we have 2 indoor cats, and we're like, okay, well, this is probably stressing them out, so we probably shouldn't do that. But it's like I still want to like put something out there for like a shelter for them this winter, or like put a cat door in our shed or something. But we'll see.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the thing. And I try to tell my partner I want to buy a house, but buying a house in California is just not reasonable at
Yeah,
all. And I don't know where else to go. I like Texas, but Texas law and stuff don't like me. And I was like, I don't know where to go. Maybe I will one day have to deal with rain and snow because I want to have a house with a yard, and I don't think I can. That's never going to happen in California.
yeah.
So
We lucked out, and we're in a village. It's classified as a village, but we are out far enough that it's like rural enough that there's the mailboxes are on one side of the street. Um,
mm,
but like we have about an acre, and we have a backyard that like you can see the neighbors' yards and the neighbors' houses, but like there's an honest to goodness forest behind our property.
mhm.
And I mean, we have all kinds of wildlife. We see deer, we see turkeys, raccoons. I've heard coyotes in the spring, and there's just it's everything. And I'm so excited to have that teaching opportunity for my kids because it's like when
Right.
they're old enough, we're going out in the backyard and looking at animal tracks, you know.
Oh yes,
And we're
yes.
going to be able to look at scat. We're going to be able to look at habitats and nests, and it's just going to be great. And I still have to put up my bat house, but there's just so much that we can do here. And I'm so sad because I know we're going to get a bigger house somewhere eventually when my
Oh,
husband is done with his residency. But it's
right,
just, we it's perfect for right now. It's a single level house so the kids run around, or well, older kid right now, soon to be two kids. He
right.
runs around the house all day long. And it's so great.
See, I'm very much jealous of that because that's exactly what I want for my son is just, him to have a space. And then, of course, when he's older, we can go collect rocks and just
Yeah.
dissect owl pellets and, look at
Yeah.
nests and all that stuff. And,
My kid loves
you know,
rock. Oh my gosh. We have a fire pit area and there's gravel, and he just picks up the rocks and looks at them, and he'll put them in his wagon and his little fire truck. It's got the little like cup thing on the top, and oh my gosh. He loves
oh
it.
man, I bet. See, I try to tell people don't buy him any toys. He doesn't play. He plays in the boxes and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
I'm just like, please don't buy him toys. But that no one listens to me, and
He's discovered
I have
blocks.
no.
So
He
he loves
mine has
yeah.
discovered dominoes. He
Oh.
like messed up our domino set, and he just because he likes to bang on things with
Yep.
dominoes, and I was just like, this is your set now. I'll just buy myself a new set because
Yeah. No, he
it's
loves the
fine.
stacker cups and the rings.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had a Mega Blocks thing where he puts the blocks on the dog, and I saw him playing with those the other day. So we gave him a thing that we bought him like a year and a half ago, which is like a leapfrog learning set or whatever, but it's like animals that you put together. And he
Mm-hmm.
has not put those down for the last 2 days. It's been amazing.
That is awesome. Well, we got about 5 minutes left, and I know you're tired because you've been up all day. So, what is something that you want the audience to know? Like, what is advice or something you think people should know, especially about you or of climate change?
Um, about me, I would say that with everything that I do, raising a toddler in a pandemic, teaching from home, writing two books, all of it, like organization is key to doing anything. And I actually use something called the Heroes Journal to help manage my stuff. So they have an amazing online community that I'm a part of. And it's basically a daily thing where you write, and there's things that you're grateful for. So it works on focusing gratitude and mindfulness. You break it down into three simple tasks that you want to accomplish that day. You have your allies, your threats, and it's really kind of a quest based thing. So just the Heroes Journal, look it up. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Um, and it helps with the organization so much because it's like, all right, these are my priorities. And then it's right in front of you. And plus, you get to color the pictures on the page, which is great. Um,
That's
and about
awesome. I'm
climate
gonna have to look that
change,
up.
oh, I love it so much. I've done giveaways for my books, both of them on their Friday live stream. So
Okay.
it's pretty great. But Yeah, and then just with climate change, like no action is too small. That's the most important thing that I think to take away from it. No action is too small. And just, even the action of trying to learn more is a huge action and can make a big difference.
Oh, I love that. And right before we go, where can people find your stuff? How can they find you and your books?
So if you search on Amazon for me, actually, you can either search for my author page or just type in the names of the books. So, oh my gosh, I can't even remember the name of my own books. Uh, Human Anatomy for Kids, Junior Scientist series is the first one, and then it's Human Body Preschool Activity Book. And if you just put those titles in with my name or even those titles, they come up on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for spending time with me today on this Tuesday. And thank you for everyone who joined in. And Kristie, give me 1 second. And everyone, I will see you next time on In the Know with CaT Bobino. Won't be next week because I'll be on a boat in the middle of the ocean and I won't be able to do this. So hopefully 2 weeks from now, I will be able to have another guest on In the Know with CaT Bobino, and have a great Tuesday.